Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. Across rural America, farms and ranches are struggling to maintain relationships with their veterinarians. We're not moving enough vets into rural America. Last week, a bill was introduced in Congress that might aim to help that. Joining us now to talk about it is Dr. Rena Carlson. She serves as president of the American Veterinary Medical Association. And Rena, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is awesome. Appreciate your time.
Let's talk about what's happened in rural America with regard to veterinary care. What are the trends you've seen?
So unfortunately, the number of large animal veterinarians has definitely been trending down in recent years. And that's why Congress must pass the Rural Veterinary Workforce Act. And it would quickly increase access to veterinary services in rural America that really is an important shortage area for our veterinary profession. And what it's going to do is allow more veterinarians to participate in the Veterinary Loan Repayment Program. And this is one of our most important tools to allow and enable those veterinarians to get into those underserved agricultural areas.
So, Rena, when we talk about the shortage of veterinarians out there in the countryside, how acute is it from your perspective?
Well, we think it's very acute. We think it's really important. Veterinarians in our agricultural related areas, they're protecting our food supply. They're protecting our public health. And so we think it's critical to work and do everything we can to enable these veterinarians to thrive and be successful in our rural areas.
And Dr. Carlson, when we think about the work that these veterinarians are doing out there in the field, of course, we've got cattle producers making money this year. We've got hog producers excited for the future. What's causing the lack of veterinarians to move in to help service these industries?
Well, it goes without saying that food animal practice jobs tend to be in those rural areas. And typically the pay is much less than companion animal practice. So on average, companion animal practice owners are going to make roughly up to $70,000 more than a food animal practice owner. So that earning disparity is making it financially almost impossible to sustain a veterinary practice in those areas. A big driver of that is our student debt. It's a huge impact on the choice and the career path that veterinarians take as they're starting their careers. And on average, we have students with debt around $179,000 or higher. So when you look at that income and debt, it really is hard for those veterinarians to make ends meet.
Absolutely, Dr. Carlson. Now that we've got those figures, I'm hoping you can help me put the math together with this veterinarian workforce bill. $180,000 in debt. This bill would provide some additional funds. How would that work? How would the veterinarian be able to make money or earn this money back once the bill passes?
So AVMA is a leading supporter of this federal legislation, and the student loan support really is going to help bridge that gap in income versus loan debt. So we support student loan debt repayment programs. There are programs for federal grants and other assistance for veterinarians in order to, first of all, go into those communities. And one of the big goals is to keep them in those communities long term. So we've really been advocating Congress to pass the Rural Veterinary Workforce Act. And we've been very engaged with the lawmakers and their staffs to ensure that we have proper funding for these programs and help alleviate those shortages.
Dr. Carlson, when you and the team have been in Washington talking with legislators about this issue, do they understand it? Do they understand the importance of quality veterinary care out there in rural America?
I think they really do understand. Many of our legislators come from rural backgrounds, and they go home and talk to the ag industry people, and they know very well how much that veterinary service is needed and how important that is for those rural communities.
And I'm curious because I know you have practiced veterinary work in Pocatello, Idaho, an area that is riddled with cattle. I'm curious, Dr. Carlson, are you seeing young people look at the veterinary industry enthusiastically in 2023? Are there young folks we can pull into this craft?
We have so many early career veterinarians who have a passion for rural America and career paths in those rural areas and ag-related careers. it really becomes a problem when they cannot sustain financially. So we do see that the student debt to income ratio becomes a big factor in how they make their career path choices, and many of them are going into companion animal, which is not a bad place to be. The problem is they really have that passion for ag related careers, and we want to support them in those positions.
Absolutely. To that end, Dr. Carlson, for those of us in rural America, what can we do to help support our veterinarians in our communities?
Well, I would recommend that anybody check their state veterinarian. Every state has a state veterinarian, and it's important to find out, are you in a USDA designated veterinary shortage area? And if so, any veterinarian in that shortage area can take advantage of the loan repayment program, as well as the veterinary service grant program. And what that program does is allows veterinarians to receive these grants to support their businesses, support the infrastructure, and again, help them stay in those areas.
Help them stay in those areas. Once we get them in the community, we want to keep them there, and that's what we're working on here. Dr. Rena Carlson, president of the American Veterinary Medical Association, thank you so much for talking to us today about the Rural Veterinarian Workforce Act.
Well, thank you for having me.
And folks, stay with us. We'll have more This Week in Agribusiness coming up when we return.